Starbucks CEO has personally met face-to-face with the two black men who were arrested out of Philadelphia Starbucks last week. Those two men were waiting to meet a friend. They asked to use the bathroom. The store's manager said they had to leave because they didn't buy anything. The manager called the cops when they refused to leave. Following the incident, demonstrators staged a sit-in and called for a boycott of the coffee giant. Starbucks says the store manager, quote, is no longer at that store. I'm joined now by Jason Johnson. He is the politics editor at theroot.com. He's also an MSNBC political contributor. So, Jason, as you know, these demonstrators say that they're not going to stop this boycott until they see significant change. What would that change look like?
I don't know, honestly, Craig, because I think that when it comes to what happened at Starbucks, there are so many instances of this day-to-day racism that people may experience. There are so many instances of strange enforcement of rules that only seem to apply to people of color, but not other people in the room, that I don't know that this particular boycott will necessarily change anything other than that store. However, if you are a patron of that store, if you are a Starbucks customer in Philadelphia, then this does have a good impact, because at least it tells the CEO that the sort of responses of, oh, we're going to have a conversation about this aren't enough. People need to be held accountable, people need to be fired, and there needs to be training that tells folks to treat all customers, regardless of color, with the same respect and the same rules.
Jason, in literally the last 2 minutes since we started this conversation, I've been handed a press release from Starbucks. The headline, Starbucks to close all stores and subject nearly 175,000 of its employees to what it's calling, and I'm just going to read it here. Starbucks today announcing it's going to be closing more than 8,000 company-owned stores in the U.S. on the afternoon of May 29th to conduct racial bias education geared toward preventing discrimination in our stores. Quote, I've spent the last few days in Philadelphia with my leadership team listening to the community, learning what we did wrong and the steps we need to take to fix it. This is according to Starbucks CEO Kevin Johnson. They're going to close these stores for one day for this training. How far do you think that's going to go for Starbucks? How far do you think this might go for other companies and institutions out there who might have to deal with something similar to this?
Well, I think there's two levels to this, Craig. Number one, yeah, 1 day of training is going to beat, what, 25, 30 years, however old your average managers are, years of sort of racial implicit bias that we have in this country. This should be standard. This should be something that you have monthly. And how hard can it be to tell your staff members, hey, enforce the same rules with every customer? If you don't let somebody use the bathroom, then don't let them use the bathroom without a purchase. It doesn't matter if they were black. It doesn't matter if they're white. It doesn't matter if they're Hispanic. So the issue, the rules are already in place, Craig. Everyone knows how to treat people properly. What's been happening, and what we saw in Starbucks, and what we saw with the viral video with the two black women soldiers in Georgia, what we saw with the other video at Starbucks where a woman denied someone being able to use the bathroom and somebody else came out who was white, who would not purchase anything, is there are no consequences for the people breaking these rules. I'm tired of these discussions about training when the issue isn't training. You don't have to train people to treat someone else nice and with respect, but you do have to show them that if you don't do it, there could be consequences that include losing your job.
This statement goes on to read, and again, we're just getting this in. They're going to close these stores in the afternoon. They're going to be trained, employees trained to address implicit bias, something that you and I have talked about a fair amount here, promote conscious inclusion, prevent discrimination, and ensure everyone inside a Starbucks store feels safe and welcome. There, of course, will be skeptics who are going to say this is merely a PR stunt.
Craig, I don't think it's a PR stunt, but I want us to think about this, because this is the same thing I say about police officers. Think of every single city where there's been an instance of police violence and brutality, and the city ends up having to settle for $6, $7, sometimes $10 million. Rather than just firing a police officer who didn't do their job properly. It costs the taxpayers $6, $7 million. This is going to cost Starbucks who knows how many hundreds of thousands of millions of dollars to shut down their stores for an entire day, for an entire afternoon, because you had one employee who didn't know how to do their job. Fire that employee, tell everybody, if we catch you doing something like this, you get fired, and they can save themselves with money. At some point, people are going to realize racism costs money, discrimination costs money, and firing people is a much better solution than just having another training.
Jason Johnson, we will leave it right there. Thank you, sir. We'll be right back.